Oh, we got to hit broadcast. There we go. Now it's
There we
broadcast.
go.
There we go.
Now,
That might be why.
is that it?
John Clarkson is
Attendees.
an attendee.
Oh, there's Clarkson.
Yeah. There he is.
There's
There he is.
Fukuda. Nice. I'm going to make him a co-host so he can present.
So long story short, Jim, it turned into potential 2-3 days and turned into, holy shit, your baby's ready to come out.
Oh, there she is.
That's
Oh, no. Promote to panelist. There we go. All right. I don't know if the attendees are in the room or.
There's a few. No, they're not. They're waiting to join. Oh, they are. They are in.
Are they in? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. So
Hey,
I
how's
think
it going, guys?
I think the waiting room didn't work the way I thought it did. John, how are you, man?
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
What's up, John?
How's it going?
Doing good.
I'm gonna repeat my little thing here. Oh wait, I gotta make hold on, I gotta oh poor Jody. Jody's gotta be made a co-host. You're gonna mute herself. There we go.
Okay, now I can talk. There we go.
So so the waiting room wasn't set up. I thought I turned it on.
Weird.
But you know, I think we might, I don't know. Hey, let's ask let's I wonder if let's ask the panelists. Hey everyone. Can you all see and hear us? It's like every time we do this, it's different. Yeah, all right, great, we're on. So hey, we're all going to say hey here, and attendees, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We'll get going in about 10 minutes. We're just going to kind of get our collective act together here, so bear with us for a few. Grab yourself a cocktail. John, so you should be able to. Do you have slides you're going to show?
I do. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of them.
Awesome. Do you want to try? Sharing your screen real quick just to make sure that it works good for you?
Yeah. So right now, only hosts can share.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna, hold on, let me make you wrong panel. We keep going back and forth, like a host, sure, why not, go for it. We keep going back and forth like webinar, meeting, you know, when we have a sponsor or don't, and so like every month it's slightly different. So we're finding out trying our way through it. But you should be able to share your screen now.
Got it.
There you go.
Okay. So I just put it into presentation mode.
So here's a question for hey, Alex and Joe. Do you guys remember for presentation aspect of it, do we want to do follow? There's like a couple different modes, if I remember correctly. Oh, I have to reclaim host. Oh, interesting. Let me. I'm gonna take the screen back, but that looks good, John. We'll come back to you in a second. I just got to make. Do you remember if it's follow the hosts view, active speaker view, or gallery view? Do you guys remember which one we liked?
It's active.
You know what? I'm gonna say follow host. I'm gonna make John host.
Okay.
That way, I think it'll stay with you, John. Excellent. Let's see if I'm hoping my friend Nate Camp shows up. He's sponsoring tonight's event. And then let's see. All right. I think we are good. So I'm going to go ahead and make you host again. So you can share your screen.
it's not saying I can do that.
Second here.
There we go.
Awesome. And there's Nate. Oh, this is funny. John, I gotta steal it back, man. I've got while I help people. Let me do this. Hey, do you guys remember how to do the thing where co-hosts can present video?
You mean to get the video, the audio to come through as well?
Yeah, because I see Nate. So Nate, I'm gonna promote you to panelists so that you should be able to.
There is, I forget exactly where it is, but when you go to hit share screen, if you want the audio to come through, there's like
Nate's on.
a modal with
Yeah.
a little checkbox.
Yes. Yeah, on the screen that you've got views of the different screens you can share, at the bottom left of that, there should be a little box that says share audio from video or something like that.
Nice. Okay, so we're all here. As soon as I make John panelist, he's going to be able to share, or the host, he'll be able to share his screen, which is awesome. Attendees are already in the room. Hey, everybody, bear with us. We're getting ourselves organized here. We'll get started in probably 5 minutes or so. Anything else? I can do like the little intros, and then I think we're good.
And then for Q&A, will y'all just sort of monitor that and field me questions, or?
Yep, Alex is going to keep an eye on Q&A, and then we'll now. Do you want to do questions as you go, or do you want to hold questions for the end, or do you have a preference?
There is a Q&A section at the. I mean, it's a slide where I just say, "Hey, let's."
It's very official. Awesome. We'll do that, and
Okay.
then and I also keep an eye on the Q&A that comes in through the chat.
Perfect.
So folks who are joining us, if you have a question as we go, just type it into the chat. Alex is going to keep an eye on the questions, and we'll do Q&A at the end of the session. Groovy. All right. All right. I think we're all set to go. We'll just when we post the video, we'll just edit all of this out. It'll gloriously start on your first slide and look super professional. So, how have you been, by the way, man? I haven't talked to you in forever.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, COVID's been weird for sure, but I mean, yeah, it's been this study has gotten a lot of interesting traction in ways that I hadn't really anticipated, and so it's good. I mean, just last Friday I was presenting at Rosenfeld Media's Design Ops Summit. They asked me to be a panelist for the future of design ops, which was pretty awesome. Hanging out with Dave Maloof, who I pretty much consider him the godfather of design ops. So
yeah, that's cool. Congratulations on the success. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Very nice. All right, what do we think? Shall we a couple more minutes or get underway? What do you guys think?
Maybe give it a couple more minutes. Get us a little bit after 7.
Yeah. We'll and what we'll do is after I'll do some quick introductions, and then John, and then I'll hand over to you, and then we'll probably all turn our video off so that folks can kind of focus on you in the presentation.
I might be jumping the gun, Jim. Are you going to do any who's hiring type thing
Yeah.
virtually? Okay. I mean, obviously we're going to feature Nate and curate.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I'll mention this when I do the introductions here in a little bit, but for folks who are already here, if you are hiring, just throw something into chat so folks can see it. Just put in just quick what position that you're looking for, the name of your company, and if there's an email or some way to get a hold of you, throw that in so folks can see it. We found that tends to work pretty well. Nate, how are you, man?
Doing all right. Doing all right. These shortened days are tough, man. The kids get out of school and, an hour later it's dark, and then we're about to jump another gun this next week. And
that's right, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Turn your clocks back.
Yep. We got Halloween, we have elections, we got the time changing. I just heard somebody say the other day that I think I can take this year of Halloween off. I've been wearing a mask and eating candy for the last 7 months straight. I think I'm good.
I good news. I do think that meteor is going to miss us. So
is that good news?
Yeah, I think so. So that's good. That might be our first break we've caught this year.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even joke. I mean, every time I see one of these news things about, Egyptologists discover, rare coffins and just like, don't open it.
All right.
One of my favorite Simpsons episodes ever, there was this meteor that was coming into Springfield, and, they had to, section off the town so nobody escaped so that there wasn't, mad hysteria. They built a bunker, and Homer at the beginning predicted that it would, the atmosphere would dissolve the meteor on the way in. But it was like this, it was the best episode. I think it won a Grammy or something like that, but it was a Academy Award. But reminds me of this. Simpsons have been great about predicting a lot over the years.
Yes, indeed. I was going to add that too. All right. For those who are joining us, welcome. We'll get started here in a minute or two. Chat is open. If you have any questions as the talk goes, for John, we'll do Q&A at the end. And if you are hiring this evening, just as Jody just did in chat, put a little information about your company and the positions you're looking for, and some way to get a hold of you, and folks can check it out as we go. This is the nice thing about remote events. You don't have to worry about mics and and stuff like that. It just kind of works, which is nice. This used to be a lot more involved.
I do miss seeing people in person and having pizza and beer with everybody. But.
That's true. Yeah, we always had about a good half hour, 45 minutes before and after every event to just kind of say hi to everybody. And we miss you all terribly. Yeah, it's a different, that's for sure. This is, wow, we've been doing these remote now for 7 months, something like that. Yeah.
Have you noticed whether attendance has picked up or dropped from the physical once you went virtual? Just curious.
I think it's down some. I think people are on video conferencing all day.
Yeah.
So kudos to all of you, everyone here who's joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us, because a lot of us are on video all day. So it's it's one more video call. But it depends though. I mean, we've had 1 or 2 talks that had just a ton of people. So it depends a lot on the topic and stuff like that. We got some posts coming through. Awesome.
Yeah, I just
posted. Awesome, fantastic.
Yeah, Dave Maloff, he just posted 2 senior design positions. So.
Oh, cool.
And he's all about design ops. So if you want to get into a place that's doing it right, good opportunity.
That's a legend. All right, why don't why don't we go ahead and get started? Okay. This is where the video will begin. Actually, we'll start it after I do my spiel. It's more interesting when it's just John. So everybody, welcome to NoVA UX this month. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Jim Lane. I'm joined by co-organizers Jimmy Thomas and Alex Chow. Thank you all for joining us here this evening. Before we get started, there's always some housekeeping we take care of. This event is being recorded. All our little chattering at the beginning will get edited out, but we will post this. It gets posted to YouTube and on our NoVA UX Meetup YouTube channel. So we've mentioned a couple times, if you're hiring this evening, go ahead and put something in chat with who you are, the company you're working for, or you're looking to hire for, the position you're looking for, somebody get a hold of you so that folks can check that out. And also in the Meetup group on meetup.com, you can also post there as well. A lot of folks will post listings in the group. If you have questions for John this evening, go ahead and put them in chat. Alex is going to keep an eye on chat, and we'll do some Q&A at the end of John's presentation. If you would like to tweet about tonight's event, our handle is @NoVAUXMeetup. Please feel free to post and tweet about it. I think, John, do you have your information on your slides?
Yeah, it'll be on one of my slides, I think.
Fantastic. So we post in Facebook and LinkedIn as well as Twitter. Check us out in our handle in any of those channels. We're going to be taking November off this year, so we're kind of doing a combo meetup here at the end of the month for October and November. And then our final event for 2020 will be mid-December. We will have more details about that soon. Any other details I forget? And I'm gonna kick over to Nate before I introduce John. You guys think of anything else? Alex, Jody?
I think you covered it.
All right, fantastic. So tonight's webinar is brought to you by Curate Partners and our friend Nate Camp, who a longtime NoVA UX attendee, good friend of ours. They've been kind enough to sponsor tonight's event. So Nate, do you want to tell us a little bit about Curate Partners?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. And I'm sorry I'm not providing beer and pizza. I'd be happy to do that, but maybe someday.
Someday.
So Curate Partners, we're a digital and data analytics focused staffing organization founded in 2014 in Boston. We've been in the DC market now for about a year and a half. Earlier this month, we were awarded the 3rd fastest growing staffing company nationwide by Staffing Industry Analysts, actually #1 in technologies. Our growth really is because we spend the time to find the right people for the right position and really take care of them. We call them our purple squirrels. We actually, the entire time we've been in existence, we've had a perfect 5-star Glassdoor rating, which we're proud of. So just a couple, I know we've got some positions posted. Since I'm sponsoring, I'm going to just shout out 3 really quick. We've got a short-term remote lead UX designer. It's about a 3-month contract, looking for somebody with healthcare experience, fully remote. We've got a contract to hire UI UX designer. It's for a federal agency, non-cleared work. And then we've got a direct hire. It's actually a really cool role, head of UX for a company it's a networking, sort of social media based company that helps connect small businesses across the country. You can imagine they're doing really well because of COVID. If you're interested in any of these roles, you can check us out. This is very high tech. Curate Partners, there's a little purple squirrel.
Nice.
If you want to find me, you can click on this on your screen. It actually won't do anything, but you can do it anyway. Or you can just type that in, and it's Nate Camp with a K. So, but thanks for having me. You guys do great events, and appreciate you guys coming tonight and letting me be part.
Hey, thank you, Nate. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Fantastic. All right. Well, for tonight's talk, we are joined by old friend John Fukuda, co-founder of Lumina Co., who's going to share findings from some research that he's conducted on data design integration into organizations. He's been presenting it all the heck over the place. We're really excited he could join us here tonight and share that with us. So we're going to go ahead and get him set up presenting slides. We're all going to turn our video and mics off so that he can have undivided stage. and we'll get going here in a second. So thanks, Nate. John, we'll go ahead and switch you on.
Thanks, Jim. I'm just waiting for the screen share.
Screen to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, it does say that host disabled.
I'm gonna throw you a host. Try that.
There it is. Okay. Sorry for that delay. Great. Okay. So thanks everyone for coming. Jim did point out that everyone has been spending an inordinate amount of time in Zoom sessions. So the fact that you signed up for another hour or so of this, I'm grateful for that. So I'll be talking to you tonight about design integration, what I'm calling the operational horizon for human-centered design. This is not a CXPA webinar. This is NoVA UX. Sorry, I'm presenting to CXPA tomorrow. And that's my handle, jkuda on Twitter. I did want to just take a quick second and say thank you to Jen, Jody, Alex, and Curate Partners. So community is like, it's the lifeblood of what we're doing in the user experience field. I mean, everybody's got their own sort of umbrella definitions of what UX is and the roles and stuff. And when we come together like this, it's like a norming session, right? So we all start to come together and agree on, what we're doing, how we're doing it. And it takes a lot of leadership and a lot of work to sort of get community to come together. So I want to just highlight, a special thanks to you guys. And it does take additional support. So Curate, for you to come in and sponsor is also very awesome. I'm John, and I looked at the list of attendees. I didn't recognize a lot of names, so I'm pretty sure a lot of you don't know who I am. So I just put in a couple slides here just so you get a sense of who I am and maybe some background into what I'm doing today and why am I the one to give this talk. So some facts. I'm biracial, raised in Tokyo in an English-speaking family. I came to the US in '92. I graduated in '96 with a BFA in sculpture. And I started in the field of user experience in 1998, so that's like 22 years ago. I talk about these things in terms of context for, I think, where as UX practitioners, you have to be able to stand in a specific place. And we're asked as researchers and designers and product innovators to come at the world with dropping your biases, for lack of a better sort of sense of things. And I feel like this part of me that has spent a lot of time, not being, although I was raised in Tokyo and my father was Japanese, my mother was from Ohio, and I grew up speaking English and living in Japan. So it's like this liminal state of being where I'm neither one thing or the other, and I get to in that space be highly observant and aware of my context. And like that, with a BFA, working in technology, I just had this stance where I'm looking at concepts and discovering ways to realize them. I know we all do this sort of as UX practitioners, but this type of background for me has put me in this place where it's just, that's where I like to live. And I want to talk a lot about that because I think organizations have that same opportunity. So all of those things in my background build up this state of being where, UX is definitely my tribe. That's where I want to spend the rest of my life in my career. And it's not just the performing of the activities that make a good user experience practice. It's all the things that you have to do to make that happen well. So developing processes, establishing artifacts and the systems that are used to communicate, the value of design, but also share that with others, right? So that they can be onboarded to this is how design should work. This is the reason why I'll invest in research, and so all the things that it takes to make that happen become a part of the framework. And then leading all the way up to last year, where we kicked off the study that I'm about to talk to you guys about. So that's just background. And the way this presentation will go tonight is I'll talk to you about the design integration key findings. There are some barriers to the best practices. And then there's like a section in the back about best practices. And then I do want to share with you some of the things that I talked about at the Rosenfeld Media Design Ops Summit just last week on the panel for the future of design operations. And then love some time in the end. So if I'm moving too slowly, somebody kick me, because it'd be great to have some conversation with y'all at the end. So I just wanted to step back for a second and talk about why we embarked on the design integration study in the first place. And it really wasn't about design integration at that point. For me, it was recognizing that design operations is a thing, that design program management or DPM is a thing, and that every time my business engages with a new customer that's like, we need user experience work, their understanding or interpretation of what UX is and the way that they're thinking, my team's gonna come in and do some work, needs a little bit of alignment, right? So it's screaming out that there's this standardization lacking. And I'm not gonna go into like, we all need standardized processes, but it just opened the door for why is it that we're not all on the same page yet? And I want to have this conversation with business leaders, like people who run organizations that have digital products and services, to have the conversation about what design ops, operational efficiency looks like, and what are the things that need to underpin it. But I also think design community members like ourselves need to find our position that we can best sort of make the right handshake with the business and technical functions in our organizations to operate fully. So it's a bit of a two-pronged presentation. So for the study, I'm like moving, there we go. Sorry, I was moving the my face, and a whole bunch of other things were covering up the slide. This is about 218 questions went out to a double-blind survey of about 112 companies. So this is just a demographic of the industries who responded to the survey. And quite a bit came back in that, as you can imagine. And in order for us to like fully get through and analyze the results of the survey, and to validate what we were finding in the results, I also sat down with leaders from the design side of the house at ADP, Atlassian, Capital One, Google, Geico, MicroStrategy, Slalom, Team W, and a couple of others. These guys basically built a lot of contextual understanding of the data for us. They gave us a lot of anecdotal information to shape and form the best practices that we generated for this study. And essentially in the data, what we found was out of everything, about 14% of the respondents to the survey took the shape and the form of what we're calling design integrated firms. There was an additional 15% of companies that were making sort of moves towards becoming design integrated. And both of these two camps shared 7 core traits that we can talk about. And I know I'm going to be using design integrated as a term a lot tonight, but eventually we'll arrive at a common understanding. So design integrated businesses, initially they just place an emphasis on heavy investment priority on design efficiency and quality. And there's a lot of different ways that ends up shaking out in the business. So I'll break that down for you. I wanted to quickly also make a business case for what design integration, the business value of that, right? And I don't have to do a ton of this work because going all the way back to 2001, the Danish Design Center had their first study about design maturity and their DMI, their Design Maturity Index. That was also followed up by Standard & Poor's and their DMI, the Design Management Institute, all of them sort of leading to like this conclusion that design-led organizations and those that are executing well are outperforming the market, right? So reflexive of that is 74% of the companies that we saw were design integrated in our research report. They were integrating design functions across their organization. That means design teams were operating internally within the business functions and in the technology functions of those organizations. As a baseline for the survey as it went out, we wanted to ensure that everybody participating in the survey understood what human-centered design was, because it's a little bit of a premise of ours that if you're prioritizing the needs and goals of the people you're in business to serve, your services and your products are going to do better in the market because you're actually meeting those needs as they exist out like real human needs. And 69% of our respondents agreed that their companies understood what human-centered design was. So if you look at that number, the 69%, they understand what it is. They know that if they did it well, they'd be performing better in the market, but then only 15% of those were actually doing it. So that's just one stage I set as a delta. Some of the questions that we asked to sort of shape our understanding of who these respondents were how does human-centered design lead to becoming design integrated? What are the characteristics of design integrated businesses? How are companies creating reusable assets and repeatable processes? In other words, how are they standardizing around this? And what are the metrics that they're using to measure their success? Also wanted to know what design and UX investments they were making. So stepping outside of the survey for a minute, we look at the market leaders who are out there, and there's all these common companies I think we're all pretty familiar with. We use their tools every day. We use their services every day. And they're clear ringers, right? These guys are winning, and they're doing it in the face of unexpected competition. I mean, it's not like everyone just gave up and said, yeah, you're the best, I'm not even gonna try. Other people are out there with products and services that are very similar to these guys. They're just not as awesome. So they're doing it in the face of unexpected competition. As technology improves, our expectations as users and customers of those technology services are rising, right? So we're getting more sort of, hey, I want this, I want that. And the technology underfoot is ever evolving. And so all these dynamics are constantly in motion, and they're still winning. So that's another framing piece I just wanted to talk to you all about. I'll get to it, just like setting the stage now. So what do they know that other companies don't? And I talked about this alignment between business design and technology. And really, when I say alignment, they're looking at what are the ways that drive efficiency and quality in our relationship as a designer to the business, as a designer to technology. And the inverse of that, right? As a business to my design team. And then when that alignment is there, that it'll lead to this repeatable, standardized, and sustainable set of processes and procedures, tools that will elevate the game. So one thing we did see very clearly in that 14% were that those organizations share a culture of human-centered design. So they've given up the idea that design is a role within their organization or a set of processes or a deliverable. It's actually a core function of their organization. So they start out trying to understand the market, the users in the context of that market, what are their needs, and what is the vision of our core capability in the services we're trying to bring to them. And so they do that through a shared culture of human-centered design. And that's baked into their vision, their values, the goals, the purpose, and the language they use to talk about it internally. And then as they move that from culture into how do we perform, they're operating with cross-functional teams, they're sharing methods and shared systems, and their budgets are shared. There's no siloing. Hey, I can't get that done this quarter because I don't have the budget. The budget's shared across the organization. And then finally, they're looking intently at the metrics that matter, right? So if we're going to do something as an organization, what KPI are we trying to move? What's the return? What's the intended return on that investment? All those things, the shared vision, shared operations, and shared metrics build this shared sense of destiny. So as an organization, they're moving as a single unit, which is amazing. And we see this, you know, you've seen these leaders out there, they're widely reputed to be design-led organizations. And Google, although they're more of a business tool and we don't really consider them as designers, they actually won a design award in 2018. And a lot of this was very intentional ground that they took. So Sundar actually had an internal sort of come to the table about we need to fully embrace human-centered design. And they built a bit of a mission internally that they share that vision, the notion of doing something simple for users that's accessible to everyone. And by focusing on the user, they stop talking about the products that they're building and they start talking about the needs of the people who use those products. And it's a real subtle shift, but it makes a huge difference. And if you do that from the CEO and the C-suite all the way down, imagine how that impacts the design teams and the thrust that they have to make something better, right? All these things are very systematically implemented. And then the metrics they use to measure, you know, they're doing it in really sort of micro experiments, but they're very intentional. So those are the leaders, right? In that other 60 some odd percent, this is more the shape of what we saw in the alignment. So, and you'll see this in places you work today. Technology functions and business functions are very well aligned. They stand up all kinds of systems for internal business process management, you know, from your HR through your payroll and general sort of knowledge management and operational stuff. And on the product side or the digital service side of things, design and IT are aligning, you know, better with DevOps and a little bit of design systems work, and they're starting to share language and things like that. But there's still this big delta between design and the business world. And we hear a lot about, you know, designers need to learn business KPIs and business metrics and get an MBA or whatever. And that goes the other way. I mean, there's a lot about design that business managers need to understand as well. So this is just one more table talking about that design integrated group. And really, I'm only showing you this because what we learned was that those who are struggling or not quite making it to a full state of design integration, it's largely because they were huge organizations. I mean, big revenues and massive, you know, departmental breakdown type stuff. And so things that like tend to get in the way of any kind of process reorganization. So the smaller companies were definitely more agile and able to sort of be responsive and reactive to market demands. So it's not about the money, right? These guys are making a lot of revenue. What it is extremely cultural. So, you know, going back in my career 20 years ago, designers were always complaining about, hey, you're throwing things at me and telling me to fix them after you've built them. So like get me into at the strategic side of things. So designers are now 20 years later, they're sitting, some of them are, you know, in the C-suite, or some of them are definitely in design leadership. There's still this sense of like, I have this seat at the table and I'm having trouble with the handshake. So how can I really connect? It's really a lot about process implementation. It's also about not having enough support from the C-suite. How do we organize? Are we centralized or distributed? And it might just come down to common language, right? So are we even talking about the same thing? So a lot of the little barriers that tend to exist, and it gets complex, but these are the traits that I wanted to call out when I said they shared 7 traits. They were human-centered as a part of their core culture. It's like a part of their DNA. That culture was supported and embraced from the C-suite down, right? So they propagate it ideologically and through a set of values and behaviors throughout the company. That design is no longer a role, right? It's more of a shared process. So as a cross-functional team, we're going to go through a design cycle. So not a siloed function. That they share language, and through common terminology and taxonomy, they build a common understanding. They look intently at business metrics that matter. They look especially at the ones that design can influence, right? So they want to be able to articulate the business value of design. And the artifacts and processes that they create are focused on sustainability. So how much reuse can we get out of this? How much waste reduction is there? And then they're investing heavily in shoring up those artifacts and processes and systems. And all of those traits really boil down to these 6 best practices. So embedding human-centered design throughout the organization, starting at the C-suite. So making that connection with the leadership. Communicating for the common good of the business, integrating design resources into relevant functions, capturing specific metrics, managing to them, creating reusable artifacts and repeatable processes, and then investing in the systems that support them. And I'll just take the next set of slides to sort of go one at a time through those. So in our study, 49% of the respondents, most senior UX designers, reported to the C-suite. And there was something that also came back in our anecdotal research, our qualitative interviews, just from Atlassian, really just couldn't emphasize enough that the CXO and the CEO having a good working relationship makes an enormous difference at that organization. Ronnie Batista at Slalom more or less said the same thing, but that executive sponsorship is a key. So it's not like you can snap your fingers and all of a sudden you can adopt this culture and have this great relationship with your leadership of your organization. It will take a lot of intention around defining what your organization's shared vision is and values are. So as like design leaders or designers within your organization, you really need to understand, why was the business built in the first place? What's the core set of values that you want to embrace as an organization? And what's the vision? How am I participating in that? What's the purpose of it all? And establishing what are the behaviors from a design perspective that support that vision and that demonstrate those values. And by doing those exercises, you develop this sort of change. You can get to a point where you can develop a change management program that will shift the concept of design as a process rather than a siloed function. Because it takes a certain understanding of with design, you get to a point of market empathy. You're not just doing market research. You're looking at the context of the people you're serving, and you're intentionally looking for ways to solve their problems, right? So marrying that with your company's core values starts this discussion around, well, what do we need to change as an organization? So that's how you get to step 2. And then bringing together and fostering collaboration with diverse disciplines. And I think a lot of teams get this. They're running design sprints or design thinking sessions. They're inviting in different parts of the organization. But I think the issue that I take with design thinking and design sprints is that they're sort of these sniper events where like you get really focused and hyper vigilant on things for a quick session, and then the designers run off and execute, right? That's actually not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bringing those diverse disciplines together to execute together. And that's from start to finish. And then, and that's point 4, really. Operating with design, business, and technology playing equal and integral roles to the inception and crafting of strategies for new products and enhancing existing products. And Capital One really takes this to heart, and the way that their team's executing this is great. We had some time with Aaron Ezrahi, who's been doing a lot of this work at their New York office. So, it was good to have his insights. The second best practice is about communicating. So you can start with talking about your company's vision and values and building a rapport with the company leadership. But if you're not speaking the same language, there's often opportunity for misunderstanding and miscommunication. So really understanding what your business means when it says it does X, Y, and Z, and then from the designers sort of interpreting that and having a design language that expresses that really makes that handshake and builds that common understanding. So once you're there, you're sort of reducing risk in a lot of ways, because all the things that do come out of, well, I thought you said this and I executed that way, those types of risks go away. And then it also builds that more opportunity to build culture, because people are starting to come together about that common understanding. So the best practice here is really develop that common language to build a culture of design. So whether that's taxonomical and you guys come up with a set of terms and definitions, it's really looking at the things that there does tend to be a lot of miscommunication on. So what do you mean when you say prototype, or component labeling, or whatever it is? Those things, once you build that common language and common understanding, all the risk of derailment go away. And then actually building a way to have the entire company embrace that set of common understanding. So again, another opportunity to work with leadership and to make sure that they're using the same language. And that way sort of everyone sort of hears and models after that. It takes a lot of work, right? So you can say you're going to do this type of thing, and culture is a very hard thing to change. So I did attend a really great talk where a service design lead at an organization actually did an internal analysis of all the things that they do as an organization. And she put out the map on actually in the hallway on the way to the bathroom. This is pre-COVID. So everybody had to see it as they went to the bathroom, which is, I thought, really smart. But it made a lot of great water cooler conversations about, well, is that really the way that happens? And where people were not aligned, new conversations were opened up. So this idea of promoting design to educate the organization, running some kind of an internal campaign like that sort of service design map by the bathroom, those types of things can be really effective in continuing sort of the campaign of common understanding. So integrating design resources across business functions. This one, actually, we saw an interesting breakdown. It largely broke down into a third and a third and a third, where design was either its own unit, or designers lived in different units, or they had this sort of integrated approach. And if you've read org design for design orgs, she talks about this a little bit in the book, where if you take a service model as a design org within your larger business, you can start treating the entire company as a set of customers. The benefit there is, and I'll just talk really quickly about this on the right. So this is the set of percentages where designers were situated in the study that we ran. So you can see it's kind of all over the map. I think there's definitely a heavy migration towards product management, but largely they're sort of scattered. So these are the three sort of interpretations of that. Design centralized. If you're a design group within your large organization, it's great because you get this opportunity to build standards of practice and a discipline-based approach to operational excellence, right? So how do we do it as designers, and how can we do it well, and how do we scale it? When you're design distributed, it's a different type of advantage. You, within that specific division, you specialize and you understand the needs, and you get your own sort of delivery models that work best with those different departments. The optimum situation, though, is that you have sort of this hub and spoke model where designers that are in those other functions still come back to the centralized set of practices, so that if they can share the load, or load balance, or whatever it is, that their central set of operations can scale and to meet the need. So This just is sort of from a org chart standpoint, an operational model that's preferred and works well. So metrics came up a lot in our study, and 87% of the participants said that all their initiatives were kicked off with a set of business metrics and a look at the different parts of the business they'd like to impact with a certain initiative. There wasn't a lot of follow through. So when we asked them, well, did they impact those? They weren't able to sort of articulate that. And 81% of the design integrated businesses we talked to said that common KPIs were yielding benefits of business alignment. So in other words, their group was able to work better to move business KPIs. And it really came from them having a defined set of metrics. So like before you start pushing pixels around, talk about the things that you're trying to do as a business. Which are the metrics that will be tied to this set of requirements, and determine which activities and touch points and experiences influence those metrics, because it's not always in design. Sometimes it's in customer support, sometimes it's in marketing. So you don't know exactly which things are going to influence it. So the more specific you are and more coordinated you are, you'll know what you're monitoring, right? You'll know what the data coming back is actually telling you. And then using that set of metrics and some design thinking, test models that might improve them, right? Don't just go ahead and like make a huge assumption and then design plan around that. It's okay to test things in paper prototype. And then managing the metrics, really track the effort and the expense. So what was the impact internally? What did it actually take us to get that done? That's a totally different set of metrics than the consumer metrics, which is where you're really quantifying that return on investment, right? You're looking holistically saying, well, it cost us this much to do it, man hours wise, or whatever that means to the organization. Maybe not as big of a concern for internal design teams, for product teams, but I know as a service company of mine, we're always looking at why did that take so long? Because the person paying for it is our customer. Right? So internal metrics are huge, but it's also a possible source of savings for an organization. If they can see you actually behaving efficiently, they'll spend more and invest in ways to make that better for you. So create, reuse, reusable artifacts and repeatable processes. This is best practice 4. We did find that out of our design integrated organizations, they were actively referencing standards management systems. So this might have been a design system, but it was also knowledge management systems. So like they actually had libraries of artifacts they use, whether it's templates for how they do their research or how they collect their insights. There's a lot of active standards. So it actually didn't matter whether they were like an older sort of waterfall production house or an agile production house or in continuous integration. What mattered was that they had identified their processes and all the artifacts needed to support those processes, the personnel and the touch points. So who are the people? What are the things they're working with? Why do they need them? How can I give it to them in a way that best supports them? And doing this with contextually meaningful language. And then creating artifact libraries and repositories, right? This is essentially a knowledge base for design teams and cross-functional teams to sort of get normed on the processes and artifacts and deliver with standards. And then those living repositories that are connected and centralized. So it's not just a design library inside of Figma, it's also tied to their storybook or their code repository. So the components, when the names change, those types of things are tokenized, right? So if a label changes, it doesn't change just in the code, it changes in my design files as well. So that's like a next level type of sophistication. And they're doing this because there's a high degree of investment in their design or their design org within their large organization. When we looked across all the respondents, just in terms of investments and where spending priority was for efficiency and quality, the highest amount of intensity was around supporting their deployment. And I think we see that today in DevOps really sort of shoring up how companies are experiencing continuous integration, right? Continuous deployment. We also see the emergence of a lot of spending in requirements, and that might shock folks, but the CX community is really doing an amazing job. They've been producing a lot of platforms to better understand customers, and they deal with things outside of the design realm as well. So that's like their customer service and call centers, as well as sales reps and things like that. How do they manage the entire representation at the front of the field and listen to the needs of the people who they're trying to sell and serve. It was shocking in our study that design was ultimately the lowest priority across the board. And this is not exclusive of the design integrated segment, but when we did do the segmentation across design integrated and design conscious respondents, we did see that their investment and priority for efficiency and quality was in tools and systems to support design, in processes and activities that support design, and in artifacts and libraries that support design. So this was like a rank order priority for your investments. And you can see how that order shifted as we looked at everybody. So that's getting through the best practices. Really, like, because I have this two-pronged audience presentation, this set of slides is to talk to business managers about making that intentional investment in design integration. So I'll spare you guys that, but I do want to talk about just a brief segue here. So as you know, everything's evolving, right? We need to adapt and change to a lot of our the dynamics, especially like you look at COVID and how we've had to all sort of change to remote models. What do we need to be in place, right? So first, just some level of safety, and then you move towards, and this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is just a natural progression of how we deal with the world and our relationship to everything in it. As designers and as cross-functional teams, we have these conversations a lot. So in order for this feature to be engineered, first it has to be functional as programmed. Then we can worry about whether it's reliable or usable, convenient, pleasurable. Ultimately, if we get to this point, maybe it'll be meaningful to the user someday. And the way I like to talk to our teams is, yeah, that's the traditional way that things progress. But how about this? Why don't we start with something functional, reliable, usable, convenient, pleasurable, and most importantly, meaningful. And then we can add the functionality that they might need. Well, design integration works more or less the same way. For design teams to be efficient, we need to be equipped. The people and the tools and the artifact, the skills, all the things need to be in place. And then we need to align ourselves, right? So how are we in service to each other, whether it's design serving the business, technology servicing the design, all those things need to be lined up. Once you have that alignment, then you can start integrating. So what are the things we do in a digital spectrum that can integrate with the technology group or with the business group? All those things, once integrated, get to the state of business intelligence, or what I like to call design intelligence. And that means what's coming down the pike if a requirement changes underfoot, which pages, which components are impacted by that. And likewise, like if a design change happens, all the different places that needs to change. And what that unlocks for you is that you're not spent in sort of the nitty-gritty details of it all, because it's being handled through an integrated system. And it does open the door for a lot more opportunity to dream and to explore and to truly, as a designer, innovate, which is what I think we all sort of yearn for. And we deal with a lot when you go through these stages, right? So today, I mean, tools we're dealing with as design cross-functional members of teams, it's just like death by tooling. So much tool fatigue and so much context switching. So it's not a lack of having it, right? These are very powerful tools. They're serving us well. It's just that there's so much of it. And the future definitely needs to be more streamlined and definitely needs to be integrated. We're running a remote design ops survey on our website where we're asking teams, what tools are you using to get through discovery and strategy, design management. And the list is just growing, but these are the top 12 that have emerged. And you can see, like, even if you're just trying to get through a discovery process, you're in and out of 11 tools here, 10 tools. Strategists are in and out of 10. Designers are definitely across the spectrum and more. So something has to change. And in getting alignment with ourselves as designers and the processes that we do, the artifacts we use to do it, we also need to figure out, well, what are those meaningful touch points across our organization? So how are we servicing program management? And how is that aligning with sort of the business objectives, et cetera, et cetera. This is this crazy spaghetti object here is an Airtable base that we have at Limina. We're using it to basically connect our concept of taxonomy and pages and components, design libraries, as well as definitions of our customers' systems and their requirements and things like that. So we're basically trying to use Airtable as our database, a relational database to connect these things. And that way we know that if a requirement priority shifts, how many different things need to move with that. And we're getting to a point where the future will be a level of design intelligence. So the hope and the dream when these things are achieved is that product managers and project managers will have impacts, a heads-up display on the impact, and that business managers can really start to appreciate the business value of design. That researchers will know that their insight repositories are sort of evergreen and being utilized in meaningful ways to the rest of the organization. The list goes on. These are just sort of anecdotes on what we hope will be achieved when design intelligence and design integration is a reality. But ultimately, as practitioners, we're less mired in the process intensity of things. There's less ambiguity about the foundational elements, right? So we're all normed on those things. And then that frees us up to be truly creative and truly driving business innovation. So I know a lot of ground and territory was covered today in tonight's talk. And some of it does seem daunting, right? I mean, it will take an enormous amount of work and collaboration and cooperation across. And I want to use the word partnership with the other leaders and managers within your organization to make something happen. But looking at the 6 best practices, there are 3 that you can pull out and sort of get started with some SWOT tactical work to start talking about what does human-centered design culture mean for us as an organization, or to start saying, hey, what are the 6 or 7 key things that we're never aligned on, and how can we build a communication plan to align ourselves? And look, and really using the word partnership, look at different parts of your organization to figure out where can I partner better as a designer to build better sort of integration across our business functions and our technical functions. And these 3 are more tactical, right? I think if you start to do any of these things, they'll naturally lead your organization to capturing specific metrics, managing them, or creating those reusable artifacts and investing in them. Because the organization will start to see those things take hold. So we do have an assessment that we're going to be kicking. We're actually launching it tomorrow on our site. So there'll be a design integration assessment. It'll be a self-assessment, like a 10-minute survey that you can go through and answer some questions and sort of get a sense of where things are for you guys and your organization. So keep an eye out for that. And hopefully I've left enough time here for some Q&A. I don't know how long that actually ran.
You're good, John. Actually, that was great. And before we hand it off of the Q&A, just want to say we have a couple of questions. What we could also do too, to make this a little more interactive, is to ask the individuals to raise your hand. And John, if you can see the attendees and see how, if they have raised their hand, you'll be able to ask the questions. But in the meantime, so John, let me know if you can see the attendees list and see if they have raised their hand. In the meantime, I'll start facilitating to the questions that have come through. And then for the attendees, if you have additional questions, please go ahead and use the chat window under your list and be able to raise your hand, and John will pick you out and ask you to ask your question. So meantime, I'll get started. This question is from MS. And this is more specific, I believe, to when you were using your Airtable. And MS, if you can unmute yourself to clarify, that would be great. The question is, example, please, of how you used your database or DB. I'm asking that's probably DB. 3 question or 6 question. I don't understand this. Please clarify, John. Thanks. I guess there was some pretty, yeah. So he's questions are coming through. So
Database. Okay. Yeah. So Airtable has been a bit of a godsend. So before Airtable came along, my company used Google Sheets almost exclusively to manage all the things. And that was, how do we estimate projects? How do we collect and we prioritize the requirements? What are the fields that make up a content type? So all of those things are now migrated from Sheets into Airtables. So when we have a component inventory, it's really a list of the components. And then there's a separate Airtable that says, okay, for this component, what are the necessary fields? What are the functional requirements? So we're basically collecting all the attributes for all the business objects that we use as designers. So as we articulate a page, the page has a content outline, it has a page specification, it has a list of components related to that. And because it's an Airtable database, we're able to connect the actual component table to the page, as we say. So it's component X, Y, and Z. Those ones are then connected to that page definition. And so we've been broadening our spectrum of what that means. So we have that for the way we conduct user research, and we collect information about the personas that and the archetypes. We break down task models. So there's each piece of that, and we call them content types. They're really UX business objects. Each one of those has its own database. And for a specific project, you'll be defining these things and you'll be connecting them. So this requirement is related to what we learned in this user research, this insight. So you can then say, okay, the test plan, then when we've designed this thing and we want to test it, is this condition will be true. So the user will have this expectation met. It becomes a real powerful sort of work stream sort of efficiency thing. So we're not digging back through all of our Google Sheets to find out what was the initial insight and what was the priority on that requirement and which components did we design for that. It all the legacy of that connectivity is in our Airtable. So the future that we do see, the opportunity is that Airtable, Figma, Jira, they all have APIs, right? So we've been using Integromat, and we've been using Zapier Zaps and writing custom Zaps to say, connect this Jira ticket to this record in our Airtable, and connect this spec to this Figma file. So in doing that, we're now building context for the Figma file that we're using against that one requirement, which is kind of cool. But what would be even cooler is if there were a plugin that could take that data, that master data about that thing you're designing, and just display it inside of Figma. So you're not going through that context switch that I'm talking about.
Sounds like a plugin add-on that Lumina should be working on.
We actually have Figma mockups of that plugin.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Next question comes from Atul. This question I think is also for NoVA UX. Will the deck or the slide deck be available to folks?
Yeah, actually on SlideShare right now, there's a version of this. So when we first launched the report, I gave this same talk to media analysts. And then after they wrote their publications, I released the SlideShare. So these slides are available there, but I believe NoVA UX is recording this one. So you get that. Yeah. And I'm happy to PDF this and share this out if you guys have a repository.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, send it to Jim, myself, and Jody. We'll take care of that and make sure we get it out to the community.
If you have it on SlideShare, that's actually easiest, and that way you get the views and all that good stuff. So.
Yep.
Okay, I can do that.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Next question from Paul Exente. Hi, John. What would you say are good/useful resources for designers to start learning how to use data to drive the conversation and/or to set KPIs?
Yeah, there's actually a resource I turn to is I think it's called the Department of Product, and it's an online community. They put out this master list of KPIs. If I find it before we get off today, I'll share it in the chat. But yeah, they break down which KPIs are used by which departments and for what reason. And so there's KPIs for product managers, there's KPIs for design leads, there's KPIs for business. It's pretty cool. And I'm going to do a quick search, but I think if you have that type of inventory, so these are the set of things we're trying to measure, these are the ways that we can measure them, and bring together the right people. And it's going to be folks from outside your group, right? So as a designer, you'll want to pair up with folks from IT and business to get that KPI even measurable in the first place.
Thanks, John. I have a question, and attendees, please go ahead and keep posting your questions. And this is kind of along the lines around data and setting KPIs, but I think it's more along the lines around current development and also understanding market validation or fit. In your sort of study, have you seen, also from your experience, how have these firms, in-house or agencies, were able to leverage research as an active sort of participatory role of validation? You have kind of hinted at that. I was kind of curious to see if you got more out of your study.
Yeah, so you're talking about research as a design, like a design practice for the organization to drive product innovation. Okay, and just a plug for UX Strat, which is Paul Bryan runs. This is actually a mission of his. So if you go to any of his UX Strat events, he has researchers and business strategists sort of presenting on how insights that user research will drive business innovation. But just call out a couple examples from there. I mean, researchers at Spotify, they were kicking out a new way of having Spotify used by families, right? So, and in order to do that, they had to come up with a persona repository, and they had to come up with insights from their research that would drive meaningful conversations with the technologists as well as the design teams. What they did was pretty cool. I mean, yes, they went out and did the research, and they did ride-alongs, and they had like folks from different parts of the organization come with them to witness this stuff. But even more powerful than that, they built their own repository. So their insight repository was, it's an internal tool of theirs, and I can't remember his name, Sohit, I think. He did a Medium post on what they actually launched, but it's an internal tool where you can look up a persona and you can put them in a context. You can actually dynamically take that persona and give them a function that you're trying to design for, and it gives you a set of things that persona needs in that context. So these are different ways that, like, thinking about research and what you know and what you learn from your customers through user research can be better democratized in contextual and meaningful ways that can drive some very interesting and I think innovative business conversations. I don't know if I'm fully answering your question.
That was helpful. Yep, that was good. I got a question from Julie Bethke. Hey, Julie. When you talk about design reporting up to the C-suite, I've seen design fall under CPOs, COOs, CMOs, CTOs, CXOs, CDOs, and more rare. Which discipline seems to be most impactful or successful?
It's interesting, what I've been seeing, especially with the design ops group. Design ops managers tend to be having a tremendous amount of traction at the C-suite. And a lot of that does stem because design operations is about measuring the success, supporting, measuring, and ensuring the success of people and processes and systems that support design, right? And in order to do that, they're doing a tremendous amount of work with teams. So they're like running a lot of workshops. They're doing their best to sort of measure and be able to report back, like, what does this actually mean to you as a business? And I think that's something that the C-suite really responds to. So whether that design ops manager is elevated to design program manager or whatever the C-suite equivalent might be, I'm not sure. But the important thing is that they're positioned in a way that is looking at things from a leadership perspective, but also has enough ear to the ground that you can impact and influence, the way things are happening, and know when it's not working, right? So that you're measuring it enough to know when things are going awry. So I don't have the Bible on what the leadership structure should look like for great design teams. I do think that a lot of great work was done in this great book here. So if you haven't read it,
Got one up there.
It's one of my Bibles. So grab a copy of it, and like, if you do find the magic position for design leadership, please let me know.
As a follow-up question there, John, so in the organization, obviously big and small, not all design gets to have a direct C-suite interaction, right? And it may be coming through as a head of design or through product or even some organizations technology. What have you found in terms of where does that kind of fall? Like, is it an organization that like kind of expands up to like 3,000 employees that kind of the line to the C-suite kind of falls away or tapers? I know you had a slide that kind of compares the two, but
yeah,
again.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even at I'll go back to UX Strat for a second. Gentleman gave a talk about going rogue, essentially. Like, he created a guild within IBM for designers from across the organization. Didn't matter what, geographically where you were. It wasn't constrained by any of those things. What mattered was that you cared enough to identify the things that you needed as to be operationally excellent, right? So by creating the guild, you acknowledged that there were artifacts and processes that needed standardization. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he gained some support from the C-suite eventually at doing this, but he had to first go rogue to prove the need and show success, right? So they built on small successes. And then as those things became utilized and then demonstrated efficiencies, that's when they got the C-suite support. So it's tough to say the best way to do it, right? Is being a rebel and going rogue the best way to do it? I don't think so. The most important thing is that you start somewhere with an intention that as designers, we're constantly solving other people's problems, but you have to carve out, maybe 10, 20% of your workday to think intentionally about what it is as a design group you need to do for yourself. So a certain amount of like self-love and saying, mm-hmm. What needs of our own haven't we been paying attention to? And I think our industry suffers from this at large. Like there's a reason why the tooling madness is out there, and we haven't really like come up with a great solution for something that really well fits design process management front to back, right? From the moment you're understanding requirements through design planning and design implementation. Nothing like that exists. And that's why we're jumping in and out of 16, 17 different other tools. And it's just symptomatic of the fact that designers are intent on solving a lot of people's problems, but not necessarily our own. I know I'm not directly answering your question, but I think if you gather a small group and you do brown bag on what are the things we can intentionally start to do, and how can we demonstrate the value of that so we can gain the support from the C-suite. That starts to build those bridges. And if you think about it in terms of things that do matter to the business, like, well, if we can get this design execution timeline down, down by two weeks or whatever, that's a huge win from a business perspective. And then you'll start to get the ear of people who might be able to influence a level of investment and what it would take to underpin your processes with better systems or better budget.
That was great, John. Thank you. I believe these are all the questions. I want to be mindful of your time as well. John, wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you for your time today.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And John, so just to clarify, because we've got a couple of questions, do you think you'll be able to post the slide share of this presentation tonight?
Yes, I'll PDF this and throw it up on SlideShare, and then I'll send Jim you the link.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We will send it around to the whole group and post it on the event. Excellent. John, thank you so much. Nate, Curate Partners, thank you so much for sponsoring tonight's webinar. We really appreciate it. It makes it easy and open it up to as many people as can join us. We'll have more information soonish on an event for December to wrap up the year. And if any of you listening, or if you know any folks in your company who might be interested in speaking at one of these events, or sponsoring a webinar or something like that, we would love to talk to you. We've done speakers, workshops, panel discussions. We're open to all different kinds of formats. So we would love to talk with you. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And the video for this event will be posted up on YouTube. Give us a day or two. It has to get rendered and all that kind of good stuff. And then it will be posted.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.